All right, what's up, TikTok land? Hopefully everybody's doing good. Told you with this new TikTok channel, I'm not going to really be doing, let's see, like it got dark on here. Anyways, I told you on the new TikTok channel, I'm not really going to be uploading as much content as I used to because the previous channel got taken away when I did that. So that's why, but I said I at least go live at least once a week on here and, go from there. But anyways, hopefully everybody's having a good night. A lot more time on my hands this week, so I figured I might as well make use of it and not just lay around. That's just one thing I've noticed. I can't do that like I used to back in the day. I can't just lay around and do nothing. I got to be productive in some aspect, in some sort of way in this life. So whether it's kind of like, the times we are now, we're kind of living in a somewhat of the pandemic era where, things are stagnated, things are, might not be shut down, but because of the state of the U.S. economy, things are a lot more stagnated, and people aren't as, what can we say, optimistic. That is the best word. People are not as optimistic as they used to be in regards to life in general, but especially from an economic standpoint. Shout out to the youth. I always say shout out to the Gen Zs because, the world that they're stepping out of now, you even have a lot of parents that are discouraging their kids from going to regular colleges. They're like, hey, go to a trade school, go to a community college, which is there was never anything wrong with that. Argue. I had this, I won't call it argument. I had this debate with a person who's very important to me in my life in regards to not everybody's an academic. I'm not an academic. I had this debate with a person who's very important to me in my life in regards to not everybody's an academic. I'm not an academic just because I read a lot and can critically think. I was never the academic type. Went to community college, got a multitude of certifications, but never the academic type. And and I've debated with the best of the well-to-do academics in society and whatnot. But I will say with all sincerity is that so with the government shutdown happening, whatever side you're on, I don't care. This is my third time going live today, and I'll keep saying it's not about politics. For me, it's all about economics. And then at the end of the day, the thing is, do you have backup plans? I remember the last government shutdown that happened in 2017, 18, 19. Yeah, it was right before the pandemic. So I think it was 2019, right before the pandemic. And I just remember all the people who were protesting, making speeches in regards to reopening up the government, because I think it lasted about a month or two. At the longest, it was a month. The main thing was it's like, do you have backup plans? Do you have money saved up? Do you have assets to pull money from? Do you have a backup plan on how to make income? It's easier said than done, obviously, but these things are very important. Why? Because you just never know. I mean, like whether it's a government shutdown, whether your corporation's doing mass layoffs due to the lack of productivity, the lack of customers, AI eliminating your job. What backup plans do you have? What alternatives do you have? We're living in a time now where it's going to become more and more normal for Americans to, and I think it's been a growing thing for a long time, but it's just going to continuously grow. But we're living in a time now where more and more Americans, it's going to be normal for them to have to retire outside of the United States of America or in a very small town where there's not even a Walmart because it's so expensive to live in the United States of America. No shade towards the United States of America. We're just talking about pure D numbers here. I know people like to twist and turn anything you say about anything, but I'm not saying, once again, if you see my content, I'm usually never I'm not anti-government, I'm not anti-corporation, I'm just all pro-economics. So at the end of the day, I'm mainly going live and talking about, hey, if you don't want to stay poor, the best way to not stay poor is to have backup plans. The best way to not stay poor is to stop making stupid decisions. The best way to stop staying poor is to be around people that are about something. That's just, you can't put, as I always say, keeping currency in your circle. friend of mine, fellow business owner of mine, Trevor, he put out there, he's like, hey, grown-ups need their own circle. Grown-ups need to be able to depend on other people, not just be around their kids all the time. Shout out to the parents. He's a parent, so that's why he's like, don't just spend all this time around your kids and whatnot. Be around adults that are talking about things that can help uplift you and take your life to the next level. Matter of fact, I think, yep, here it is. Yep, Trevor Martin, shout out to him. Adults need a village too, not just children. Surround yourself with great people. I think, is this his YouTube channel? Because if it is, I'm going to subscribe to it. But yeah, anyways, at the end of the day, that's just, I can't put it any other way. Are you going all out of your way to keep currency in your circle, or are you just going all out of your way to keep basic minded people around you? When your job runs out, whether it's in the federal government, whether it's in a small business, whether it's with a major corporation or whatnot, do you have a backup plan? I shared this old post, and this was like right before the pandemic, where these 5 to 6 young guys saved up enough money to buy their own rental property. Now, bear in mind, they didn't have a rental their own place. They were actually renting and still living with their parents. But they pulled their money together. They cut the spending that they were doing on a regular basis, and they actually bought a rental property in the city of Philadelphia before Philadelphia became fully gentrified. And they went and the property that they bought was $80,000. Now that property is worth $300,000 off of 1 year of sacrifice and living below their means, not buying overpriced clothes, not taking vacations, not having overpriced cars. Over that 1 year of sacrifice, they all put their money together, bought a tangible asset. And because they was able to take money out of that equity, out of that specific tangible asset known as a property, they were able to buy other properties in the state of Pennsylvania, which I've done before, for a lower price, especially during the pandemic, when they had more time on their hands and they was getting that, that good money to where people, they were getting paid the highest unemployment rate in, I think, American history. So they utilized that money. They had their own, as I like to call, team corporation. These guys in their early to mid 20s, and they bought assets together, and now they basically were able to retire at the age of 30 years old, not because of the age, not because of a retirement plan, but because of an economic plan. So no individual retirement account, no 401k. They were able to retire because they put their money together and they bought tangible assets that are paying off tremendously. And while they were doing it, they were buying cryptocurrency all at the same time and buying stocks. So they was able to pull resources from those specific accounts all at the same time. Moral of the story is, at the end of the day, keep people around you that want to talk about money and not debate crap like politics and sports. No shade to people that are into politics or sports, but Lord have mercy, I'm too old to be debating over things that don't pay me money. And I just leave it at that, okay? I leave it at that. I just got to keep it real. If you don't want to debate about how I can make some money, we got nothing to talk about. It's, I'm 42 years old. I'm not an idealist in my 20s trying to change the world. If we're not talking about how to make some money, then there's no reason for any of us to debate anything if it's not talking about that. That's the best way to stay poor. But that's just my personal opinion. I leave it at that. All right. I love my girlfriend. Hello, how you doing? Thanks for the love. I greatly appreciate it. But, that's the moral of the story. If you see my content, I like to travel. I like to talk about economics and whatnot, buying stocks and things of that nature. That's what I'm about. All right. Rental properties, participating in tax liens to buy real estate, things of that nature. That's what I'm about. So you want to debate about those issues? Let's debate about it all day. I'm not going to debate about Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl. Who cares? Okay. Let Bad Bunny make his money moves. You need to be worried about you making your own money moves. And I leave it at that. But anyways, I'm about to call it a night, family. I'm going to put my travel link, if I can, in the description. If not, it'll be in the replay on the video later. But anyways, hopefully everybody has a good night. Do the great 3 free things. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Make money moves or you're going to live like a fool, as they say in Spanish. Bienvenido a la vida. Welcome to the life. I'm out.